the divine purpose of your darkness, and why it's your greatest spiritual gift. There's a secret the world has hidden from you since the day you were born. A truth so inconvenient, so misunderstood, that most people spend their entire lives running from it. You were born different, heavier, deeper. You've always felt like there was a storm inside you, a chaos that couldn't be tamed, a darkness that followed you wherever you went. And you've asked yourself, why me? Why do I feel more cursed than chosen? But what if I told you, you are not broken? What if the very shadow you've tried to escape your whole life was actually the proof that you are one of the dark chosen ones?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
You see, not everyone is born with the same spiritual blueprint. Some souls come into this world with more light, their path is gentler, their energy is calmer, their lessons more subtle. But others are born into fire, into trauma, into rage, shame, abandonment, and pain so deep it echoes through lifetimes. And while the world may look at these souls and think they are lost, the truth is far more sacred. They are being forged, not punished. Forged for purpose. Because only those who have tasted the full depth of darkness can hold the full spectrum of light. That's you. That's us. I remember the first time I faced my own shadow. I was sitting alone in a silent retreat in the mountains. No phone, no noise, just me and my mind. And suddenly, all the pain came up like a tidal wave. Memories I had buried, rage I had disowned, shame I thought I had healed. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But I stayed. And in that silence, I heard something real. Something ancient. A voice not outside me, but within me whispering, "This is why you were born like this. Your darkness is not a flaw. It is your training ground." And in that moment, I understood I wasn't cursed. I was called. So let me ask you something that could change your life. What if the reason you feel more shadow than light is because your soul came here to lead others through the dark? What if your suffering isn't what disqualifies you from greatness, it's what qualifies you for it? You can't guide someone out of a cave you've never been in. You can't hold the broken if you've never been shattered. That's why the dark chosen ones exist. We carry the codes not of perfection, but of transmutation, or of alchemy, of turning wounds into wisdom and pain into power. The number one reason you were born with more shadow than light is because you are being initiated into the path of the wounded healer, the warrior mystic, the spiritual assassin who slices through illusion not with fake love and light, but with radical truth. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be happy. It needs more people who have stared into the abyss and didn't look away. That's your role. That's your purpose. And that's why your darkness is not something to fix. It's something to understand. Most people think shadow is evil, but that's a lie. Shadow is sacred. It's the part of you that holds your deepest truth, the truth that couldn't be expressed when you were a child, the truth that society told you was too much, too wild, too intense. But that truth never died. It became your shadow. And now, It's time to retrieve it, to stop running from it, to stop numbing it with fake positivity, distractions, or spiritual bypassing. Because the longer you avoid it, the more it controls you. But when you face it, you become unstoppable. Here's the paradox. You were born with more shadow because your soul volunteered to carry more karma, more density, more ancestral pain. Not as a punishment, but as a mission. You took on more so you could clear more. You incarnated into darkness so you could liberate others from it. That's why your life has never been normal. That's why you've always felt like the black sheep. Because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to break chains. You were meant to end cycles. You were meant to become the light you never received. And yet the path is brutal. No sugarcoating it. The dark chosen ones don't get the easy road. We get betrayed, abandoned, misunderstood. We get thrown into situations that break the average person. And we are forced to either die spiritually or awaken. That's the real initiation. That's the fire no one talks about. And if you're watching this, it means you're in it, or you've been through it. Either way, you're not alone. I see you. I am you. And I'm telling you, there's a reason for it all. When I look back at my own path, I can see now that every betrayal was a blessing. Every heartbreak was a doorway. Every trauma was a test not of strength, but of remembrance. Would I remember who I was even when everything was taken from me? Would I choose love when hate made more sense? Would I rise when everything inside me wanted to collapse? That's what shadow teaches you. Not how to avoid pain, but how to alchemize it. And that's the gift you carry. But here's the thing. The shadow doesn't transform just because you want it to. It transforms when you meet it fully. When you sit with your rage without judging it. When you cry without apologizing. When you scream into the void and say, "I'm done pretending." That's when the shift happens. That's when the shadow becomes your ally instead of your enemy. And from that space, you become a lighthouse in a world drowning in fake light. So how do you begin? You start by telling the truth, the real truth. Not the one you post on social media. The one you whisper to yourself late at night. The one that says, "I'm tired of hiding." The one that says, "I want to feel real." The one that says, "I'm ready to stop running." That's the doorway. That's the beginning of your initiation. And once you walk through it, life will never be the same. Because here's what happens when a dark chosen one awakens, they become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because they stop being afraid of the darkness. They've made peace with it. They've understood its language. And they've transmuted it into a force of healing. These are the people who walk into a room and shift the frequency without saying a word. They don't need to prove anything. Their presence is the proof. And now I ask you, what if your most painful wound is actually your most sacred calling? What if the thing you've been ashamed of your whole life is the very reason you were chosen? You think the universe makes mistakes? You think your soul came here by accident? No, you were forged in fire for a reason. And the world is waiting for you to remember why. So don't numb it anymore. Don't hide. Don't shrink. Rise. Rage if you must. Cry if you must. But rise. Because the world doesn't need another light worker who's afraid of their own shadow. It needs warriors of truth, mystics with scars, healers who have bled. It needs you. And if no one ever told you before, let me be the first. You are not broken. You are chosen. And your shadow is not your shame, it's your superpower. How shadow energy becomes the weapon of the dark chosen ones. You've made it this far, which means something inside you already knows the truth. You were never meant to be ordinary. The pain you've carried wasn't random. The darkness that's followed you wasn't a curse. It was the fire, the sacred forge. And now the question becomes, what will you do with it? Because this is the part of the journey where the shadow is no longer an enemy. It becomes your weapon. Not a weapon to harm others, but a divine blade to cut through illusion, to destroy the lies you've been fed, to reclaim the power that was taken from you the moment you were told you were too much. You see, the dark chosen ones are not just survivors of darkness. They are wielders of it. That's the difference. Anyone can be broken by trauma. Anyone can numb out, shut down, become bitter. But it takes a spiritual titan to go through hell and come back with medicine. That's what you're here for. Not to be free from pain, but to transmute pain into presence. That's the sacred work. And no one else can do it for you. Imagine this. A sword is useless without fire. A diamond is just carbon without pressure. And your soul, as powerful as it is, could never reach its full potential without the crucible of shadow. That's why your early life was so intense. That's why you've always felt like you were carrying more than others. Because you were. And not just your own pain, but the pain of generations. You're not just healing yourself. You're healing your bloodline, your ancestors, the collective unconscious. And that's why your awakening was delayed. Because the real you had to be forged. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your pain was disproportionate to your actions? Like life hit you harder than you deserved? That's not punishment. That's a soul contract. You chose to carry more. Why? Because your soul knew it could handle more. It knew that by transmuting that density, you would become a force of clarity in a world lost in confusion. You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to be clear, to be real, to be dangerous not to others, but to the illusions that keep people asleep. There's a power that lives in your shadow that no light can imitate. It's the power of knowing what it feels like to be abandoned and choosing to show up anyway. The power of knowing what it feels like to be hated and choosing to love anyway. The power of knowing what it feels like to want to die and choosing, somehow, against all odds, to live. That's not weakness. That's divinity in its rawest form. And the world needs that. It needs you. But here's where most dark chosen ones get stuck. They awaken to their shadow, but they stay trapped in it. They identify with it. They become attached to being the outsider, the misunderstood one, the wounded one. And that is a trap, because the shadow is not your final form. It's your initiation. But you must step through it. You must move beyond it. You must learn to use it, not live in it. That's the alchemy. That's the next level. That's when you stop being a victim and start becoming a vessel. So how do you do that? How do you turn your shadow into a weapon of awakening? First, you must face it without flinching. That means you stop blaming the world for your pain. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your suffering. You look into the mirror of your soul and you say, yes, I've been broken, I've been hurt, I've been betrayed, and none of it defines me. You stop hiding behind your wounds. You stop using them as identity. You let them become your fuel. Because when you stop using your pain as a shield, it becomes a sword. Next, you must embody your fire. That means stop pretending to be someone you're not just to make others comfortable. Stop dimming your truth. Stop softening your intensity. Your anger is sacred. Your grief is sacred. Your edge is sacred. The world has lied to you and told you that to be spiritual means to be soft, to be quiet, to be passive. But that's not your path. Your path is fierce compassion. It is ruthless honesty. It is unapologetic presence. That's your medicine. Imagine walking into a room and people feel the weight of your energy, not because you're loud, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because your soul is anchored, because you're not afraid of truth, because you've made peace with your past, because you've died and come back more times than anyone could count, and each time you returned with more wisdom. That's what it means to be a dark chosen one. You become a portal, a living transmission of awakening. And the world doesn't need more noise. It needs presence. But to live like that, you must practice every single day. You must choose the higher road even when the lower one feels easier. You must sit with your shadow every morning and say, I see you. I hear you. But you don't drive anymore. You must stay accountable. You must stay awake. Because the moment you fall asleep, the shadow will take the wheel again. Not because it's evil, but because it's habit. And your job is to rewire that habit with conscious choice. Let me give you something practical, a ritual. Every time you feel triggered, don't react, don't speak. Sit down, close your eyes, and ask, what part of me is speaking right now? Is it the wounded child? Is it the abandoned lover? Is it the betrayed friend? And then ask, what does my higher self want to say instead? This one habit will change your life, because it moves you from unconscious reaction to sacred response. That's how you reclaim power, not by controlling the world, but by mastering your inner world. Now, let me ask you something that might sting. What are you still blaming others for that you haven't yet taken responsibility for? Because until you own it, you can't transform it. And until you transform it, your shadow will keep repeating patterns, attracting the same people, the same pain, over and over again. But when you say enough, I choose to wake up, The cycle ends, and a new you is born. This is the rebirth of the dark chosen one, not into light alone, but into wholeness, into a being who walks with both shadow and light in harmony, who doesn't run from either, who uses both. Because only when you stop dividing yourself can you become a force of integration in the world. So now I ask you again, are you ready to wield your shadow as a sacred weapon? Not to destroy, but to reveal. Not to dominate, but to liberate. Not to pretend, but to embody. This is your time. The world is calling for warriors of the soul, not perfect people, not polished people, real ones, messy ones, raw ones, you. And if you're still doubting yourself, let me leave you with this. Your shadow is not heavier than you can carry. It's deeper than you've yet dared to explore. And within that depth is a treasure so powerful it could awaken nations. But you have to go in. You have to descend. And you have to rise not as who the world told you to be, but as who you truly are. The sacred rebellion, why dark chosen ones are the hidden architects of the new earth. By now, if you've made it here, you already know the truth cannot be unlearned. You've seen it, felt it, lived it. You are not here to be healed into someone else's idea of light. You are here to remember who you are beneath every mask, beneath every wound, beneath every false identity you were forced to wear just to survive. You are a dark chosen one. And now I must tell you the final truth, one that changes everything. The world as we know it is dying. The systems are crumbling. The illusions are cracking. The old paradigms of power, of control, of fear are being exposed for what they are, lies. And in the midst of this collapse, something extraordinary is happening. A new earth is being born, not through governments, not through institutions, but through souls, through you. Through those who have walked through fire and didn't burn, but awakened. Those who carry shadow and light in perfect tension, those who are brave enough to hold the pain of humanity without being consumed by it. That's us. That's our role. We are the hidden architects of the new earth. Let me ask you something. Why do you think you've always felt disconnected from the world, dissatisfied with what others chase, unable to follow the crowd, even when it would have made life easier? It's because your soul isn't wired for the old world. You were never meant to fit into a system built on separation, greed, and superficiality. Your discontent is not dysfunction. It's divine. It's your inner compass saying, there is more. There is truth. There is something beyond this illusion. And that something is what you came here to help build. But here's the paradox. In order to build the new earth, we must first destroy the old within ourselves. That's the sacred rebellion. Not rebellion for the sake of chaos. Not anarchy. Not outrage. Rebellion is remembrance. Rebellion is the act of saying, I will no longer participate in my own suppression. I will no longer silence my soul to keep others comfortable. I will no longer trade authenticity for acceptance. That is the real revolution, the spiritual one, the one that starts inside. Because before we can change the world, we have to stop lying to ourselves. Stop pretending. Stop playing small. The old world trained you to hide your power, to distrust your voice, to fear your own intensity. And now you must unlearn it all, because the new earth needs the real you, unfiltered, unapologetic, unbreakable, not perfect, but whole, not polished, but present. That's the frequency that will rebuild this planet, not strategy, embodiment. So how do we become these hidden architects? Not with words, but with energy, with how we show up, with how we hold space, with how we live. Every moment becomes a prayer. Every breath becomes a rebellion. You speak truth even when your voice trembles. You love deeply even when you've been betrayed. You stay grounded even when the world shakes. That's your role, not to escape the world, but to anchor something new within it. And make no mistake, this path is not for the faint of heart. It will cost you everything you thought you were. You will lose relationships. You will outgrow identities. You will be misunderstood. But what you gain is worth infinitely more: integrity, peace, alignment with your soul. And more than that, you become a portal, a living transmission of what's possible when someone chooses to live from truth, no matter the cost. I remember a moment in my journey when I had to walk away from everything: friends, career, status. Not because it was toxic, but because it was false. It no longer resonated with the frequency of who I was becoming. And in that emptiness, I found something priceless: freedom. The kind of freedom that cannot be bought. The kind of freedom that comes when you no longer need to be anyone but your true self. That's when I knew I had crossed over from the old world to the new. And now it's your turn. Let me ask you one final question. What are you still holding on to that belongs to the dead world? An identity? A belief? A relationship? A mask? Because if you want to rise into your full power as a dark chosen one, you must let it go. You must bury the version of you that was built to survive the old world. And you must resurrect the version of you that was born to lead in the new one. That version of you doesn't chase, it magnetizes. It doesn't perform, it radiates. It doesn't seek validation, it is validation. That version of you doesn't fear the shadow, it wields it. That version of you doesn't avoid the fire, it becomes the fire. And when you live from that place, you don't just heal yourself, you heal others without even trying. Your presence becomes medicine. Your truth becomes a mirror. Your life becomes a lighthouse. And this is how the new earth is built, not by force, but by frequency, not by fighting the old, but by embodying the new so fully, so intensely, that the old dissolves on its own. That's why you're here. That's why you were born with more shadow than light, because you were meant to transcend polarity itself. You were meant to show the world what it looks like to be both, to be whole, to be human, to be divine. So now, the final truth: you are not here to be saved. You are here to awaken. You are not here to be loved by everyone. You are here to love yourself so deeply that others remember how to do the same. You are not here to find the light. You are here to become the light by integrating the dark. This is the sacred rebellion, and it cannot be stopped. Let them call you too intense. Let them call you too deep. Let them call you too sensitive, too dark, too much. That's how you know you're doing it right. The world has never been changed by the ones who seek approval. It's been changed by the ones who remember who they are and refuse to dim. So rise, not in anger, but in clarity, not in ego, but in essence, not in separation, but in sovereignty. Rise as the dark chosen one you've always been, and walk this earth not as a seeker, but as a seer, not as a victim, but as a vessel, not as a follower, but as a frequency. Because in the end, the shadow was never your enemy. It was your invitation. And now, the world is watching. The old is dying, and the new is waiting. Will you rise, or will you remember?